I took my spaceship in and showed Jerry and Rich. And
on the record, are you saying that you and ECSI are responsible for Parsons starting their integration side of the business?
Hey, we're either going to find someone that can take this on and know what we're doing, or we're going to stop doing it.
Matt, I'm going to ask you to be a bit vulnerable.
We get asked a lot, are you the biggest? I think we probably are now.
It's not even having to walk over sometimes. It's stand up and look at the person right next to you and say, hey, where are we at on that?
Yes.
So,
It sounds like the sexiest system. Hey, Andrew, we do clocks. That was the age of dial-up internet.
We had to prove ourselves.
welcome to Beyond the Breaker podcast.
Fancy guy, fancy meeting. Andrew, do you want to officially get us going on this?
Yeah, I would love to get us going. So welcome, Matt Myers, to the Beyond the Breaker podcast. I don't know what
episode it is.
I don't know what episode it is. I don't know where we want to start. All I know is that Matt Myers is the Vice President of Limited Energy and ECSI General Manager. So welcome. Thank you for joining us. And we're kind of here. We just want to get to know you, get to know, for the listeners and the viewers, what ECSI is. I think everybody has a really good understanding of it, but you can provide a much more in-depth answer to that question, as well as your background, because you've been with ECSI your entire working career.
Entire life.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Yeah.
I think when I first started, Jerry Hine would always tell me, I've known Matt and he's been working for me since 6th grade. I don't know whether that's true or not, but let's just dive into that to start. Tell us a little bit about your background and kind of how you got started with ECSI.
Sure. Thanks for having me. I think this will be good. I was taking a CAD class in high school, so it wasn't 6th grade. It was more like senior in high school. I think it was a senior in high school. And it was offered through our industrial tech class. And, hey, you can take a CAD class. I'm like, oh, that's cool. I should learn how to do that. So I did it, and we ended up drawing a bunch of stuff. I drew like a spaceship and some other things, and just for school. And then my brother, who's also in the industry, said he knew Jerry. And he said, hey, Jerry's looking for, ECSI is looking for a CAD technician. They don't have anybody on staff right now. They're just kind of getting by. And at that time, I was working at Target in electronics, and I was starting to go to school I was going to be going to school for engineering at the University of Minnesota. He said, you could probably make a little more money doing this while you're going to school.
Yep.
So I took my spaceship in and showed Jerry and Rich and interviewed. And
here's my drawing.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you still have a copy of that thing?
I do. I actually thought about trying to find it and bring it. It's actually on like a poster board thing.
Well, if you can
I'm going to
find
put it in my office, I think.
Send it to us because we can have
we'll flash it up on the screen.
Okay.
And they'll be able
I'll
to
do
show
that.
it.
I've got it somewhere for sure.
Does it look like a child did it?
It's not. It doesn't look like any of the BIM guys did it. I can tell you that much.
All right.
If you drew that same spaceship today,
I wouldn't be able to do it.
No,
I haven't done CAD I was the CAD guy for, I don't even know, until we came over to Hunt. Probably I was doing a lot of CAD. I was starting to do some other things too.
Sure.
But yeah, that's how it all started. And then worked through college and decided to, Jerry said, hey, you want to stick around? And I said, sure.
Yeah.
At that time, it was just kind of comfortable and has nothing to do with my degree. My degree is in, it's more biochemical. It's biosystems engineering, bioproducts engineering.
Sounds really smart.
But you got to pull back the covers on that. Is it real smart, or was that some sort of weird pipe dream? Was it all a bunch of, I don't know, you just didn't have anything better to do? How the heck did you do that?
How did I get into that? So what I originally intended to get into was biomedical engineering, but the school that I went to, which was fairly large, I listened to John's podcast this morning. He came from a small area, but mine was large. I still did not have a counselor that was super in tune, I guess, and I just probably didn't go to the counselor very often. So
Sure.
I was kind of behind the 8 ball on when I should have actually applied for some classes and things like that and applying for colleges.
Yeah.
And my parents, we talked about a little bit earlier, I was the first of their next generation of kids, because we had an older group. I have my older brothers and sisters that are 10 to 15 years older than me.
Yeah.
So they probably weren't even thinking about it. They just figured out you're going to go to school and, whatever.
Yeah, I promise they weren't. Yeah.
So I didn't apply. I applied late to the University of Minnesota. And at the time they said, well, you're at the top of this wait list, but you're late and you're probably not going to get in this year. But we have this other program. You can go do this. And they'll actually offer scholarships. They're trying to get people to do this. And to do that and just transfer into Institute of Technology. And then, so I went and did that, and I actually ended up liking it because it was a lot of biochemical, it was a lot of the same things that I was already going to do anyway. Plus there was some scholarships involved, and I was paying through college.
Yeah.
So,
no, it makes such a
and
huge
then
difference.
ended up getting absorbed into the Institute of Technology and became part of the entire program. And so I ended up sticking it out. So that's how it ended up happening. And and then so I had the degree, and it was either I can decide to go do this, or I can kind of do. It was I probably stuck around mostly because it was comfortable at that point, and I figured I'll give it a shot and see how it goes, and then that's that one thing turned into another.
Would you say it worked out well?
Yeah.
The verdict's still out on that one. Maybe.
Yeah. So let's, if you can, open the doors to the old ECSI days. Maybe tell us a little bit about the history of ECSI and how it has kind of brought itself into Hunt and what their relationship is like today.
Sure. Yeah, old days. So when I started, we were in Oakdale. Original office was in Egan, actually. Probably not too far from where we're going to be here shortly.
Full circle.
Yeah. And it started with a company called Highlight Electric was the name of the electrical company. It was Jerry and Rich were partners with the owners of Highlight. And they were in the same office. And they moved to from Egan to Oakdale. And that's when I started in Oakdale. So I think the company started was March 7th of 97. I joined in February of 2001. So still pretty young company. There was like 5 people in the office. Shared some resources with Highlight, like I said. And then, so then as it progressed, Highlight Electric got bought by Parsons Electric. So for a short time, we actually shared a building with Parsons Electric over in Oakdale. So Parsons had their St. Paul office, which then they wanted us to move out of that office. And we actually, so ECSI moved out so that Parsons could take over the whole building and use that space. They actually paid for us to move around the corner.
Just to pause you there, on the record, are you saying that you and ECSI are responsible for Parsons starting their integration side of the business? Are you responsible for Archkey Technologies?
No, we are not.
Okay.
No.
I'll try and catch you later.
No free ads.
So you guys were in the building with Parsons, and then you moved?
Yeah, in the building with Parsons. They paid for us to move around the corner. So we literally went from, I think it was 477 Hayward Avenue to 645 Hayward Avenue. We moved just around the corner.
Yeah.
And then we were in our own space over there. So that's where we stayed until we moved over to Hunt in 2010 in St. Paul.
How did that come together where ECSI and Hunt, I mean, you can use your own sort of family descriptor, cousins, brothers, married, I don't know. But how did ECSI and Hunt really come together? What did that look like? And maybe at that time, can you speak to, what the goal was?
Sure. Yeah, so some of those conversations, I mean, I wasn't involved in some of those. A lot of those were happening between, Mike Hansen, who was back in the day, and then Jerry. And I think, but what I've been told about it, so I'm assuming it's all accurate information, but essentially Hunt knew that, Mike knew that limited energy was something that everyone was getting into from an electrical standpoint, and there was a lot of companies that were trying to do this, and there's still a lot of electrical contractors have tried to do this and integrate it, and it hasn't gone successfully. So they had tried that a couple times with a couple different companies that they had purchased, and maybe just not having the right people involved and not having the right people in charge of it. So what I was told was, Mike kind of said, hey, we're either going to find someone that can take this on and know what we're doing, or we're going to stop doing it. And then that's when I think Jerry and Mike had some conversations in the past, and maybe things just kind of lined up, and then we came over, and it was relatively small at that point, but we absorbed in. It was called 4th Street Systems, was the contractor that Hunt had before, and then Midway Technologies, which we kept that name up until, I don't know, we had Midway for it's probably been longer than I can remember because time goes so fast, but it was probably almost 10 years ago that we kind of decided not to use Midway anymore. That was the AV group, the residential group. We just decided to call it all ECSI, but yeah.
And with that, there was a business case there to come together. Clearly some minds, were thinking alike. I mean, both Mike and Jerry are phenomenal human beings and strategists. Why are we still together? Why does it still make sense for us to be family members?
Sure. Yeah. So being very, very involved in that from 2010 on. So I don't know if you guys are going to get into the roles that I've had, but I've done.
You can name them off, but for the listeners and viewers, it's just everything. Think of any job description at ECSI, and Matt's done it. So that's the list.
Yeah, we've covered it. Moving
including
on.
IT director, because
you know what? I'll just read them off while we're here. We're going to go CAD technician, systems engineer, IT director, project manager, business development, operations manager, to now vice president, limited energy, and ECSI general manager. Catch my breath.
Yeah.
Which, now that you said that, I guess I want to make sure. Well, I just want to make sure we get a plug in for ARS, because ARS, which we have in Duluth, is ECSI and ARS have kind of come together as one cohesive team, we're still working through what that looks like. But starting January of this year, I became responsible for, Cody's overseeing ARS, but Cody reports into me now. So we are trying to work closer. We've been doing that more and more over the last couple of years, but it's really more official now. So limited energy, ARS, ECSI. Just want to make sure your ARS gets out there too.
And to be frank, like we're all part of the same family. Yes, ECSI is one of the brands, Hunt is one of the brands, but we got Power Solutions, we got H&R, we got
Absolutely.
a lot of folks, and it's all one family. Yep. But why does it still make sense for us, maybe even to deepen that relationship with folding ARS in, from a logo and branding perspective?
Sure. Yeah. So I guess where I was going before was just in 2010, I was more in project management, business development, more probably closely working with Hunt, trying to get integrated in with Hunt. Before we came here, because Parsons was in our building, my goal back then from Jerry was to work more with Parsons. So I had gotten more in bed with Parsons before we came to Hunt, and then it was all of a sudden, by the way, we're going over to Hunt. So then everybody at Parsons said, okay, we can't work with you anymore. So then I had to apply what I had learned doing that and try to work in Hunt internally. I think why it worked was because we worked with the Hunt team, and we worked with them as if they were customers, instead of it being, trying to work as one team, but also at the same time trying to make sure that everybody was getting taken care of. And we had to prove ourselves. I mean, we've done work with Hunt before that, but we hadn't done, a ton of work with Hunt as much as we probably would have liked. We were smaller. We had still only like 5 or 6 people, maybe might have been 8 or 10 people in the office at that point. So it was still smaller compared to what we are now, especially. But the biggest reason why it made sense was we can go in and sell ourselves as one contractor. Now it's one, if you're hiring Hunt, you're hiring limited energy. There's not going to be a subcontractor. And the way I've got a list of all the systems in case we need to name them all off. There's so many, but there might be 15 different low voltage systems on a project. You might have 5, 6, 10, you might have 15 different subcontractors depending on what you're doing. So if we can do all that and be as diverse as we are as a limited energy contractor, because we are one of the most diverse in the systems that we do, and do all that under one umbrella from under Hunt, now it's, we always talked about how, one of the PMs from Hunt could always just go walk over and tap somebody on the shoulder and say, hey, what's the status of this? I got to get back to the owner, instead of having to call a different contractor and not getting an answer and not, so those are the reasons why it's worked. And I mean, there was definitely challenges in the first couple of years because everybody kind of had their favorites that they had worked with in the past. And, so it took a little bit of pushback from Mike and from Jerry and the people that were running things at the time to kind of get that moving forward. And then from my perspective and everybody else that was working at ECSI to follow through and actually honor our commitments and do the things that we said we were going to do. Yeah. That's what got us further down the road.
Yeah, and we talk about that a lot on this podcast. Is communication, I think, gets brought up every episode. For sure. And what you really just kind of explained it there is that's the key, and that's kind of why it works, and that's why it will continue to work. Is we're in the same building. It's the Hunt PMs actually sit in what I would call the ECSI area, right? So everybody's right there, and it's a matter of it's not even having to walk over. Sometimes it's stand up and look at the person right next to you and say, "Hey, where are we at on that?" Yes. Right? So yeah, there's a lot of integration in that sense. And let's go back a little bit to just broad level. Can you define and describe the limited energy world? I know it's ECSI system integrators, and you say that we have such a diverse portfolio of what you guys are capable of doing.
Yep.
Can you just broad level, what is limited energy? How does that pertain to commercial and Hunt Electric, and who's doing this work?
Sure. Yeah, so limited energy from our perspective, I mean, there's a lot of our competitors that will focus on, one system or a couple of different systems. They'll do structured cabling systems, or they'll do just fire alarm systems, maybe security systems. So what I was saying earlier about us being the most diverse, we get asked a lot, are you the biggest? I think we probably are now the biggest in the Twin Cities, in the Minnesota market, Twin Cities market, from a number of people and maybe from a revenue standpoint. But before that, I said we're the most diverse for sure, because we do all those systems. We do, and I did list them all because I'm going to. It's hard.
That's it. I mean,
it's hard, and this is probably not even all of them.
I think it's all stuff that's like we do all of it, and when you name them all, people might ring the bell like, "Oh, we do that."
Yes, yeah. So access control systems, other people call them card access systems, audio visual systems, clocks, So we do wireless clocks. We can do wired clocks. Clock systems in schools.
This sounds like the sexiest system. Hey, Andrew, we do clocks.
It's actually one that we don't do a lot of anymore because a lot of people don't do clock systems anymore. But it is something that's still out there. It's big in hospitals still. Wireless clocks, synchronized clocks. So structured cabling, data cabling, fiber optic cabling, DAS systems, cellular DAS systems for cellular DAS, cellular repeater systems.
What is DAS?
Distributed antenna system. So it's
what on earth does that do?
It's a thing off your car.
So if you got a building, so we're actually putting one, I believe we're doing one in the Egan building because the cell signal's not that great in there. So if you've got, it became big. A lot of it has to do with the low E glass that gets put on the new buildings.
Sure.
So a lot of people think the signals won't penetrate the building because of what it's made out of. A lot of it has to do with the glass. So the glass does a great job of keeping the heat in and out, depending on what time of year it is, but it also keeps the waves from coming into the building so you don't get cell signal.
So for a basic chucklehead like myself, it makes sure my cell phone works in the building.
It's like Wi-Fi for cellular phones.
Boom. Yes. Moving on. Yes. Thank you.
Yep. And then also for emergency responder radios because that's a different signal.
Yep.
Fire alarm systems, which is what ECSI was kind of built on. That was our bread and butter. It still is. We still do a ton of fire alarm systems. Infant protection systems, patient monitoring systems in hospitals. So think about the baby ward where baby gets born, they get the little bracelet put on them. It's just basically locks the door when they get too close to the door in case someone's trying to take off with the baby.
And much kinder than ear tags on cattle. Yeah.
Intrusion detection systems. We do network equipment now. Nurse call systems, paging systems, sound masking systems, video surveillance systems, and then the newest thing that we've started doing here in the last few years, which with the addition of CAD keys, and then also some employees that are doing automatic doors. We do locksmith services, and then automatic doors, power door operators, things like that. Which the locksmith thing was very, very. It put us in front of a lot of other contractors because when you're doing an access control system, anybody that's been on a construction team has probably sat in a meeting with door hardware, and everybody hates a door hardware meeting, and everybody sits there for 8 hours going through every single door, and then people are still pointing fingers at each other at the end of the thing. We now can do the security piece of it and do the electronic security, and we do the actual hardware that's on the doors. It's made a huge difference on the jobs that we're doing both on. It's more efficient and it's more profitable because we're not all pointing at each other and having to go back to that door 7 times. Yeah. So I probably missed something, but that's a good most of them. Yeah.
So for all of these systems, who's doing them in the sense of who are the ECSI technicians?
Yep. So that's the other piece that makes things a little more challenging for what type of work that we're doing, because I've got not every technician that we have is well versed in every single one of these things. Nobody probably could be. So we've got technicians that are someone calls up and says, "Hey, I need to get a fire alarm tech out to a job site." Yeah, we probably have more fire alarm techs than probably anything. Mm-hmm. But if someone calls and says, "I need to get a Crestron AV programming person out to a specific job site," there's probably a few people that know how to do that, and really just a couple. So,
and that fire alarm person and the AV person might not be the same person.
Most of the time, they're not the same person.
Right.
Yeah. Right. So it's very diverse, and it's limited energy. Obviously union limited energy agreement. Mm-hmm. There's installers, there's technicians, there's general foreman. It's very similar structure to the way the inside agreement is, and I know you know that really well, but with your background,
yeah. And
does that answer your question?
It does, and I think what I was trying to get out of there too is they're similar to the inside agreement. We have apprentices and there's steps to it. And then there's a journey worker to foreman to general foreman. And the route is somewhat similar on the limb energy side, where you have installer and you're working your way up and you get to technician, then you get to foreman and general foreman. And there are steps you need to complete in order to do that. One question I would have off that, and then I think, Ben, we can move on because I'm rambling onto this. Let's say Hunt employees who are listening to this, they have a high school or even middle school student who maybe doesn't really know what they want to do.
Or maybe they're passionate about energy already.
Something like this. And technology in itself, what are some routes for a young individual to get into the limited energy, whether it's as in the field or in the office for ECSI? What are kind of some of those routes, or what should they be focusing on? You were in a CAD class. That's how you got into it. What else is there out there?
Yeah. Yeah, the biggest thing that makes what we do different from the inside agreement too, as you know, is that we can hire anybody off the street. Essentially, we can bring them into the program. There's not it's not a essentially you get put on a bench and then you make a phone call. We can bring in, if there's somebody out here right now that says they're interested, we can bring them in and we can put them through the apprenticeship program. We just send them down to the hall and sign them up, and then obviously there's some other things that happen as things progress, and they got to eventually pass some tests. But we can really hire almost anybody. As far as what, a lot of kids these days are very interested in what we do because it is more technical, and and things like, I don't know, AI and all the stuff that everybody phones. That's why all these kids can, my kids already I got a 6-year-old daughter that could probably rip this thing apart and put it back together. So that's just the way things are now. So it has become more interesting. So that's more of on the field side. In the office side, we do bring in interns now and then. We've probably had an intern pretty much every summer, at least one for the last 3 or 4 years, 4 or 5 years, something like that.
Do you hire any of them?
Yeah.
All right. Awesome.
Yeah. We've got a few that have decided to stay.
Yeah. Good. Matt, you guys have both used the word diversity a little bit about like the different paths to get here, and without going like down some sort of like political black hole about this, because it's kind of hot and heavy these days. But part of what I ask about on this show a lot of times is, how are we encouraging folks to come into the trades? How are we respecting, kind of their needs and the life that they lead on a daily basis? Because sometimes it's cold, sometimes it's wet, sometimes it's hot out, and sometimes it's just shitty. And so when we think about diversity in our workforce, and maybe some of the flexibility you have as a limited energy group, what are some ways that you're encouraging more diversity in the workforce as it relates to what we do in the field, what we do in the office? And when I'm using that word diversity, I'm thinking we got 3 middle-aged white men. Sorry, Andrew, you're in that group.
Yeah, geez. Just aged by 10 years somehow.
The industry is dominated by white men. Like, it's just, True. That's the way of things. But it's changing, right? And I think that's a really good thing.
Yep.
So tell me a little bit about how you guys are encouraging that, formally, informally, and maybe what we can do tomorrow to maybe nudge that a little further.
Sure. Yeah, we're doing a lot of the same things that Hunt has been doing, things like Lake Street Works and being involved in that and trying to sponsor some of those classes, go down and do some of the training at those classes. I think they're having a graduation at the end of this week, if I remember correctly. I know we've got somebody going to that, along with a few people from Hunt. So just organizations like that, I think that's been a really good one. Just some of the things that NECA does in general. I know Andrew was very involved in NECA, obviously. We've always been really I remember Jerry hauling me into a NECA meeting when I was probably pretty early on. I was still the CAD technician. I was going to NECA meetings. But there's a lot of things that they do that try to promote this. A lot of it's word of mouth, though. A lot of it is, we've got that's really probably the biggest way that we've added employees in general, at least at ECSI, is by word of mouth, because somebody comes in, and then we were kind of talking about before we got started here, but they've got a brother, they've got a buddy, they've got a sister, they've got whatever that wants to do something too. And so when we bring people in and they enjoy working here, which most of the time people do.
Yep. Retention is frankly incredible.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And we've got so many people now that up until probably 5 years ago, I always said I could count on one hand the number of people that had left ECSI at their own free will, and that's a little more than that now, but it's way more people now. But
yeah, I see, on the construction side of things, I'm going to say like the last 15 years, I've seen more and more women get involved in it. Again, I think that's like just this untapped resource. Gosh, why haven't we sought women to be part of the industry for so long? I'm seeing more and more folks who are not white get involved in it as well. And I love the idea of word of mouth being that really positive influence. Is there something that you could say to me, because technically I work on the Hunt side of the table, or that you could say to any of the craft workers that are listening to this, like, what are some steps that I could do to go out and really showcase the value, showcase the benefits of working at ECSI?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of what we just talked about. It's what has your experience been, and hopefully it's been good, because we've always taken care of everybody. If there's always times when someone maybe doesn't.
What does taking care of look like? Like, give me your elevator pitch here, man. Matt, why would I want to come and work as a field technician for ECSI?
So we've always been fair with everybody. And And when someone's dealing with something and going through a hard time,
like some personal family stuff,
which, everybody's always got something like that going on.
Yeah,
some things are more extreme than others, having people that have had, we've had but we've had several people that have had, substance abuse issues and things like that.
Yeah.
And as long as those individuals have been willing to work with us, we've always been willing to work with them and keep supporting them through those processes. And then, some of those employees are some of the best people that we have working here right now. So, but it's just, checking in with people when someone has a concern, when somebody has, like you said, something that's going on at home, how are things going? And that's probably been one of the biggest struggles that I've had personally as we've grown, because that's how I was raised in the company. That's how Jerry ran the company. And with a certain number of people, you can stay on top of all that. So now that we've gotten larger and we've got a different, different hierarchy, we've got additional managers within ECSI that weren't there before. So that's been something that's been big for me to make sure that my team is staying on top of that with their individual teams, because I can't possibly do that for 200 and some people is where we're at now with field and office. So,
but it's the trickle down effect, right? Yes. And if you show that for your team or really anybody that you may interact with at ECSI, they kind of repeatedly do that same thing with their team.
Yes,
and that's fostering that culture is.
You mean treating humans like actual human beings who matter? Like, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. And I mean, and even on an individual contributor level, though, I mean, if we've got someone that's going on a vacation, that group of people knows each other well enough and cares about each other enough that someone's going to try to back that person up, and they're going to try to make it so that they can actually take a vacation for a couple of days, and they'll fill in for them. So that happens on the job sites, that happens in the office. I mean, I see it all the time. We've got a good team mentality. We've got a good, I don't want to call it. It started as almost kind of a small family company. Not really. I mean, it wasn't really
now
family.
We're getting touchy-feely. I like it.
And I don't want to say that we're all one big family, but we're trying to keep that same mentality, that same culture, that same, and that's why it was a good fit back in 2010 when ECSI came over, because Hunt had that same culture.
Yeah.
So, and I know that they know that, and that was part of the discussion when it happened back then.
Yeah. I love the way that you brought it up as, the team mentality, right? And you can call it family, you can call it team, but at the end of the day, it's when somebody's on vacation, how are 4 people going to pick up for that individual to make sure that everything continues to move forward, and you didn't even notice that person was gone? Yep. And at the end of the day, it goes back to how can we all succeed together? And
that's exactly. Yeah.
And it certainly shows with ECSI's success, growth, and then to what we talked about earlier, the retention numbers.
Yeah.
People want to stay, people want to be a part of that team. So it's awesome.
We got a bunch more business questions, but I want to move away from that for just a minute.
Okay.
So tell everybody about Thursdays. Tropical Thursdays, Matt.
Hawaiian Thursdays? Yeah.
Tropical Thursdays. Lay it out there. Tell us what you know, and maybe we can fill in some blanks and create some positive challenges there.
So I'll be honest, I don't know exactly how that started. So we have our...
That's it. Stop the podcast. We got to get somebody else in here.
We have our labor coordination meetings are on Thursday mornings. I think Hunt's are the same. We have ours a little bit later. Everybody gets together for that meeting. And so I think it came out of that meeting somehow. It was a couple of individuals. I think someone in the service department, someone on the project management team. I think they just started wearing Hawaiian shirts, and then it kind of has grown since then. So, yeah, I think there's even, I heard there was a video or something possibly that happened last week. I think I heard, but
I'm not saying there's not, right?
There were a lot of Hawaiian shirts in the parking lot for like a good 10 minutes. So,
but like, the individuals you're talking about, we're talking about Todd, we're talking about Logan.
Todd and Logan are the two that come to mind. Yeah, I think they were the ones that started the whole thing, and.
Yeah. So I'm just putting it out there. Tropical Thursday is a real thing. I don't know if it is up in Duluth yet or over in North Dakota, but I saw these guys and I was like, oh, those are cool shirts. Well, hey Ben, like if you want to join, like you can wear one too. So I've been wearing a Hawaiian themed shirt for the last few Thursdays. Loving it. And it's
looking to get hired, apparently.
Oh, he's got the logo already.
Right there. Maybe a little zoom in on that thing. That's what I'm talking about.
It's pandering.
But no, like it's like silly, it's organic, but it's been interesting to watch like other people start to wear Hawaiian. I saw some guys in the estimating group at Hunt. I saw somebody up in accounting wear one last week. Like this is a good thing. So it's shameless plug. Tropical Thursdays is a thing.
So I think what we need to do next though is we need to start offering a logoed Hawaiian shirt in the company store.
Ooh.
Smart. That's got to be the next thing.
Sarah Bang, you may have to accept this challenge. Looking at you. I like that idea. That's freaking awesome. Yes. Yeah. Yes. All right. Back to some business.
So you've been in many different roles in the energy field and industry as a whole. What has been probably the most notable change or innovative change that you've seen? And where do you really see that limited energy field going? Because Mike Hansen, when he made the decision to bring in ECSI, and Jerry and Mike had those conversations, the vision was clearly, hey, this is a growing field and we need to be a part of it. And you see a lot of the large contractors in the industry today, again, whether it's starting in-house or purchasing a company, is having a limited energy aspect to their company. And so where have you seen that change happen, and how fast has it happened? And then where is it going?
Yeah. Like time stamping that, like if ECSI started in 1997, like that was the age of dial-up internet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Man, how far we've come and how far are we going?
Yeah. No, everything was more analog back then. I mean, fire alarm panels weren't like they are now. It wasn't, you weren't using software for things as much. It was more, so it's come a long way. And when I think about it, it's not that short of a time, I guess, but it kind of is. But it's a lot of it's the software stuff though. And it's based,
And when you say software, do you mean like on the design side on the front end, or are you talking about the software and the way we interact with those systems that y'all install?
More so the second one, but both really. I mean,
Okay.
It's the software for designing things. It's also because what it's allowed us to do is to try to do a lot more pre-planning on things. A lot of the advanced construction stuff that we talk about all the time, being able to do those types of things. And then, but just the way that you would put a panel together instead of standing in front of it and maybe hand pecking something into like a keypad or whatever. But now you're doing it, and actually you're doing it with software, and you can do a lot of it ahead of time. So you can program something like a fire alarm panel or whatever it is on your computer. You don't have to even be sitting in front of it, put it all together, and then upload it onto the panel later. And now you can even do that remotely in a lot of cases. So we've got people that are sitting maybe in a cubicle back here, and they're programming a panel down in Georgia.
Yeah.
Not a fire alarm panel. They are able to do that with fire alarm panels now, but you still have to have somebody standing in front of it from just because of requirements. But security systems and other systems, you can log into them all day long and program them remotely.
Yeah, it's crazy. So in that sense, and we have had Bear Manufacturing on, is there a world where you see this as like all being remote? What is the landscape for ECSI? How far do you guys go in the sense of other states, other countries?
So until probably, once again, I can't remember how many years it's been now, but probably 3 or 4 years ago, we didn't do a lot of national stuff. We did most of it was really just Twin Cities market. We go into Wisconsin. We might do something kind of wild every once in a while and go outstate for a little while. But probably 3 or 4 years ago, maybe a little bit longer than that, then we started to follow Hunt around and do national stuff. I think there's still a lot of potential there for us to do a lot more of that. But we wanted to kind of start slowly, which is what we did when we, in general, because I remember Jerry saying if you don't turn the spigot on a little bit slower, we could completely drown, because there was so much work that Hunt was bringing through back when we came over in 2010. If we said we want to do all of it, which would probably never have happened anyway, we weren't set up to do it all. So we kind of try to slowly do that. That's the same way National has been going, and learned a few lessons probably the first year or so. Maybe got involved in a couple projects that they ended up going fine, but they weren't ideal for us. And then since then, we've been a little more selective on what makes the most sense and where we can add the most value. A lot of times for us, it's the product. We are the distributors of most of the products that we sell. If we're doing a data system or something, we're buying that through a gray bar or through an annexer. But if I'm buying a notifier system for fire alarm, or I'm buying a Genetec or an AMAG access control or all these other things, Crestron, we are the distributors. So we're buying it directly from the manufacturer. We can sell it to others, but a lot of times it's a parts and programming thing. So we can take these things nationally and start selling products because we have agreements with most now, because we are large. So we actually have some leverage with a lot of manufacturers now where they want to work with us more. But because before it was notifier would say you have to stick to your territory. Now they say you can go wherever Hunt goes and work on these national projects across the country.
Okay. So
if we can sell a notifier system, keep all that money in the organization versus buying it from a Simplex or somebody else nationally, it makes a lot of sense. So right now nationally, I don't know how many projects we have going on, but at one point we were in like 12 states, and it's probably pretty close to that right now, I would guess.
And when you got a strong PM like Steve Idzo doing some of those projects, like, are you telling him he can no longer retire ever?
I've been telling him that for years.
Well, let's make sure that we get Steve some folks that he can train up and share that knowledge.
Just give
right?
him a Hawaiian shirt and he'll stay forever. Right? Yeah. So with that, in the sense of maybe the ability to do some of that remote work, the ability to expand, would you say that the maybe route that Jerry suggested and that ECSI took and taking it a little bit slower to make sure we nail each thing that we're doing, do you think that grew the company faster and all the systems and diversity that you can do? Because I think if you're drinking from a fire hose and you don't learn, you make all these mistakes, you then got to go back and fix everything versus just a little bit at a time, actually probably kind of the rabbit and the tortoise.
Yeah.
Is that the
tortoise and the hare? It's okay.
Tortoise and the hare, whatever. Yeah. They didn't teach us that book in 2014. But would you say that it would kind of helped ECSI grow its diversity in systems as well as just sheer size?
No, I think it probably did. And I mean, the other thing that we did was at one point we were doing a bunch of different, so we had like 6 or 7 different access control systems that we were doing because we had to in order to stay busy. And then we decided at one point we're going to pare that down. Let's just pick 2 or 3 that we really want to do, try to grow that, because what that allows us to do is now all the things that we were talking about before. So if I've got a security technician that now needs to know how to program 6 different security systems, that's not easy. And it's not easy to have more than one person that can do that, especially. So if we pare it down and we say we're going to focus on just these 2 different manufacturers, that's when it really started to take off. And that's whenever we started to do things a lot better than we were before, because people were able to focus on just a couple different systems instead of 6 or 7 or whatever it is. So, but then since then, everything is kind of grown again because now we are larger, we have more people, and then all of a sudden somebody calls and it's, hey, can you take on this particular system? So we've grown that back up again. But with each of these different systems, I think what we did is, we pared it down and said, we're going to focus on these couple of manufacturers. Let's just do these really well. And then we'll start moving forward from there. We did that probably, I don't know, it was over 10 years ago. And that made a huge difference. That's when security really took off for us, and AV and some of those types of systems.
Nice.
So if I could say that back, I think some of what I'm hearing here is focusing on core competencies, be really, really good at a couple of things. Yep. Develop that sort of process, workflow, culture, mentality. And then when it's time, expand that a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. Yeah, those bite-sized pieces, right? It's like how you eat the elephant is, just one bite at a time.
Well, and I think it kind of goes in tune, though, with just the general public about technology in a whole, right? Some people say, or let's just say companies, oh gosh, I heard about this new thing. We absolutely got to do that. And then everybody tries it for a week or 2 and everybody goes back to, nope, that's not working, because they just try to push it on people. Yeah. I think in the way that you explain that, it just goes to show, right? If you do this with a little bit of intelligence towards the long run and not just, we got to be in this market now because limited energy is going to come and go. It's like, absolutely not. Yeah. It's starting and it's only going to get crazier. And you look at, I think it's the hotel down in Texas, is it? That's all done on
the digital electricity.
Yeah. Right. Or yes. Digital electricity entire, isn't it a hotel? Yeah. Yeah. So 40 some stories or something like that, all done on
Sinclair, I think it's called.
Yeah. But it's just like, okay, so we're building hotels now with that. Yeah. What's next?
Yep.
So
Matt, I'm going to ask you to be a bit vulnerable, a little bit transparent. There have been a couple of guests we've had on here where, I'm not trying to pick on anybody or throw shade, but just, can you look at some failures, some mistakes? Maybe it's on the business side where, hey, we went too fast, too far, the wrong direction or whatever. Or maybe it's on the personal side where you as a PM or as a CAD guy or as a technician, like somewhere you screwed up.
Sure.
And then, if you can tell, some sort of anecdote about a place that a mistake was made or you're seeing a failure. And then how are you using that to propel growth? How are you using that to help teach and guide and improve rather than beat somebody up?
Sure. Yeah, I guess so a lot of the interns that we've hired in the past, and then me just trying to transition into different roles. I've had a lot of project managers, mostly project managers that I had mentored and tried to take over certain accounts. And so I guess I'm not going to think of any specific failures, but one of the biggest things that I remember is that if you it always came down to you had to be planning far enough ahead or you would end up you would never get caught up. I remember a lot of times there was questions, well, how can you be so organized? How can you have time to filter through your emails and organize them, in a certain fashion and put together a to-do list or to have, and I'm like, I don't know how you don't have time to do that. You have to do that because if you don't do those things and if you're not organized and if you're not thinking a couple steps ahead, especially as a project manager, in my opinion, then whatever's coming at you, you're not going to be ready for the things. As a PM, you're always going to have things that come out of left field, pretty much on a daily basis probably. And if you haven't planned for the things that you know that you have to take care of, and if you're not ahead of that, the stuff that comes out of left field, you'll never be able to handle it.
And that discipline, though, does that come from like, that's just how you're built? Or maybe you fell down, you dropped the ball, you made a mistake or got overwhelmed? It's
lessons that I've learned as I've done this. I mean, am I confident? Like anything else, as you do it, your confidence levels grow. I mean, I remember I think I told this story, I can't remember where I told it here recently, but when we first came over to Hunt, ECSI's projects were probably, our average job was probably $20,000. I mean, we did projects that were $100,000, a couple $100,000, and this was back in 2010. I mean, we probably had done $1 million jobs too, but we came over and I was first starting to get into sales at that point and just working on a few different projects. I got one job, it was like a $300,000 or $400,000 sale. It was the biggest one I had sold at that point.
Yeah.
And I'm like, geez, how are we going to get this done? Because it was kind of a big job for us with all the other stuff that we had going on. And then a couple of weeks later, I got another one, like $300,000 project. And I'm like, good Lord, we figured it out. There were some challenges, obviously, but then that you do that. And then all of a sudden you're doing $1 million job and then you're doing a $2 million job and it got to the point where probably for me, I don't know how many years ago it was, 5, 6, 7 years ago. I just kind of realized we're going to figure it out no matter what we do. We always do. We always figure it out. There's going to be some challenges. We try to plan for things as much as you possibly can, but my confidence level had grown to where, because we'd always figured it out and always had success somehow, and we have an excellent team.
And you got faith in that team. Like,
exactly.
Let's be honest, we've had some stumbles, but by and large, we keep winning because we're treating each other as a team. We're working on our communication. We're always trying to get better.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
Yeah, and communication, you guys have talked about a little bit too, but that's a big thing for me too. I think that 99% of the problems that we have in general are communication, whether it's communication, I'm not going to say that everybody that works at ECSI, if it's a project that we're working on with Hunt, sometimes there's some communication issues on those projects also.
What? No way.
So generally speaking, I think everybody works really well with each other, but I think there's always, if everybody communicates a little bit more, I think everything would be a lot smoother in general.
Couldn't agree more. And I think everybody that will come on to this podcast is going to say the same thing, is that why things work here is you have to communicate. And it's just because stuff comes out of left field and right field and center field and behind the backstop. Like, it doesn't matter where it's coming from. We still have to deal with it because the expectation is you get the job done and you do it in a timely fashion. It's not, you don't really get the extension of, no. Yeah. So, or X customer can be like, we'll give you another month or whatever. So, that's great. So let's, I think as we get close to wrapping up here, let's just talk about you. What do you like to do in your free time? I know you have children.
Yep.
I assume there's probably a handful of activities that you're spending a lot of time with them. Just what do you do in your free time? What do you enjoy?
Yeah, so I know that was kind of the question that's a question I get asked a lot, and I don't have a good answer for it, honestly. So what you said was exactly correct. So I've got a 6-year-old daughter, I've got a 9-year-old son who's about to be 10 in a couple of weeks, and I've got a 12-year-old daughter. And between my wife, who also is in a job where she's busy on a pretty regular basis. Yeah. Between the two of us, if we're not working, it's literally hauling kids around. My son's now in traveling baseball. He's on a soccer team. The girls are in dance. One of the older daughters in basketball. So the biggest thing lately is that we don't know about a lot of those things because they don't publish those calendars until.
Oh, that's perfect.
We'll find out tomorrow that there's, by the way, we're going to have a practice tomorrow. So it's literally hauling kids around a lot. And then we both, I don't travel as much. I travel a little more than I used to. My wife travels a fair amount. So it's a lot of running the kids around and hanging out with the kids and working basically is what it is.
Summertime's coming. Kids, they ain't going to be in school. What are you guys doing as a family this summer? You got any sweet barbecues planned, a cool road trip? Jared Kinneberg, he plans road trips. They sound amazing. I want to go on a road trip with him. What are you guys doing this summer?
So in the summer on the weekends, a lot of times we'll try. So my father-in-law and mother-in-law live down in Texas, but then they come up to. They have a place in Princeton on a lake in Minnesota. So we go up there every once in a while. Probably not as often as we used to, just because there are still kids things going on in the weekends now in the summer. So we'll go up and hang out on the pontoon or whatever.
Yeah.
We do have one trip planned in August. We're going to Upper Peninsula, Michigan, which I've been to Michigan. I've got some family in Michigan, but I've never been to the Upper Peninsula. My father-in-law actually used to go up there because he's from Michigan quite a bit when he was a kid. So we're going to go up there and have kind of my wife's side family, kind of a little family reunion. So do that.
Spoiler, Brennan Wyatt loves Michigan. The dude knows everything about Michigan.
Yep.
I took a trip up there to the UP this winter, and he gave me a couple of recommendations that were just spot on. So you're going to love it. That's fantastic.
Yeah, he's on my list to talk to. I got to make sure I check in with him.
Yeah. He's like, you've got 3 months, right? Because I'll give you all the stuff you can do.
Well, Matt, we appreciate your time and joining us today. I think this was very enlightening conversation about what ECSI is doing and really the growth that ECSI has not only brought to their own company, but to Hunt as a family here, team or family, whichever one you want it to be. But Ben, I don't know if you had any final comments.
I echo the things that Andrew said. And I just want to give you a chance to ask any questions if, there was things you want to throw at us, me, anything. I know a good barber. Yes.
It's funny you say that, actually, because I was trying to get a haircut for about the last week, and I finally went and did it last night. Because I'm like, I'm going to be on. I think I talked to you about that. I'm going to be on the podcast. I better get at least. It looks pretty bad.
We got good cameras in here.
The only thing I guess I don't have a question, but the only thing I would like to add before we go is one thing that I would like to just state from a limited energy perspective is that ECSI and Hunt Electric are one company. Hunt Electric's ECSI, ECSI is Hunt Electric. So ECSI is very proud to be part of Hunt Electric. I'm very proud to be part of Hunt Electric. I know that there's some misconception on that sometimes, but we are one organization, and I want to make sure that gets out there a little bit to some of the others that maybe don't know that. Yeah, we are a subcontractor on a lot of projects, but we are one organization and we are one team. So that's important to me.
Awesome.
I love that, Matt. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
Boom.